spring, spring, spring. When somebody breaks your heart like you broke mine. When somebody breaks your heart like you broke mine.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Beyond the Green Room. That little teaser, it's not playing now, that wonderful show, but it was the press reel from a show that I collaborated on with one of our wonderful guests today. Brings back beautiful memories, a review of the work of Johnny Mercer. And we're going to accentuate the positive this afternoon with my guests. We have one unfortunate thing happened this afternoon is the internet is out in Palm Springs, where one of our guests, Philip Chaffin, was going to be joining us today. But we'll have him on very soon, and we will get a little bit of his artistry during our intermission today. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, I'm David Edwards, and this is the brunch time chat show of all things theater beyond the green room. And I have two very special guests today, that a couple who I dare say are, their names are synonymous with Southwest Florida theater. And they have just, against all the headwinds that we all are facing right now, have started a brand new venture, a brand new theater in Fort Myers. And among many things that we'd like to talk about with their remarkable careers, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to hear all about the Players Circle Theater in Fort Myers. But before I go on any more about these two wonderful people, let me bring them on. Carrie Lund and Robert Cacioppo.
Hey, David.
Hey. I know that I'm looking at your beautiful home there. I recognize the backdrop very much. I fondly remember almost every opening night party that you held in that beautiful space. It's the most unique and lovely house I can imagine. It's so full of art and artistry and love, and it exemplifies your relationship. So I'm having wonderful memories of it. So I want to talk about so many things, but we play a game here when we start the conversation every Beyond the Green Room, and it's 1 degree of David Edwards in my own egotistical way. And I ask my guests how we first know each other. How did we first meet? And it opens up the conversation. So I think the only person who can really answer that on your end first is you, Bob. Yeah. So how did we meet?
That's a tough one, David. I'm embarrassed to say that it just feels like we know each other for so long. I collaborated with you creating shows. I directed you. You directed for me. It just feels that we know each other a long, long time. Was it just an audition in New York through Macassey or something?
Well, as I say, whenever I ask this terrible question, your answer may not be mine, but my recollection is I think when I came in an audition for Orlando Shakes for It's a Wonderful Life, the radio play, you were so warm and welcoming, and it seemed like you knew me from an audition before. And I was terribly embarrassed that I didn't remember. But you hired me for that. So we finally got to work together, and it was delightful. And then you invited me down to Fort Myers to do three. I can't imagine three more diverse projects all in one season. I got to direct The Seafarer, and
you did a brilliant job. That was a fabulous production.
Well, I was very proud of it, but a lot of my work was done because you cast it before I got there. So, but then we did that marvelous review, Too Marvelous, the work of Johnny Mercer, and it was such a long run down there that I got to see Carrie in at least 3 shows during that period. And then I went down again to do the emceeing in the gala that year. So I can't imagine 3 more diverse projects. I spent almost a year with you guys, and it was terrific. So I guess that's the answer. That's the long and the short of it. But
that's a good one. And you know how much I believe in ensemble, and that once I meet someone that, like yourself, that's talented, that is nice and pleasant to be with, I want to work with them again and again, because when you share a common language, I've always sort of based our theaters on being an ensemble-based theater. And why would I not, once I have a wonderful relationship? So, work with someone again and again and again. That's
for a freelance theater artist, that's the most delicious thing we can even hear, because we go itinerantly from venue to venue, and you two have had the charmed life of being able to work together and in so many things steadily for so many years. But that's because you forged that way ahead, and that is a remarkable accomplishment. You have started a brand new theater this year, and who knew that you would be facing not only what you would normally face opening a new theater, but the headwinds that this pandemic has created. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on down in Fort Myers? I hear nothing but positive reports, but I'm sure there are just a few bumps in the road right now. You're still open, right?
Oh, yeah. We did a show last night.
Remarkable.
I was just going to say that it seems like we've been training for doing the pandemic for years. And it happens that when, starting theaters way back in our 20s, we encountered those headwinds of many kinds. It just seems like you're always kind of venturing as a pioneer in new territory. And so there are those obstacles you're faced with, and you have to just think outside the box. Yeah. But I'll let Robert describe, because while the pandemic was going on, I was suffering from COVID. So I missed out on this last weekend's performances at Player Circle, and I heard it was a big hit last night.
Well, I was so grateful that you told me very frankly that you had gone through it and you're still recovering, but you look marvelous. And the fact that you still committed to do this, it gives us all the fuel to go on, because I think theater artists have been overly careful, because we know how our livelihood has all been wrapped up in the effects of this pandemic. And so we've been very careful, whereas maybe a lot of other industries haven't been. So we need to know every once in a while that there's a smiling, healthy, happy face on the other side of it too. So that's it. It's great.
Treat it casually in any way, but I have to say that, the skills of an actor can help pull yourself through too. It is, the good breathing exercises, that your body is your temple, and you just take all of those constructs that you learned as an actor and then employ them in a sickness to overcome it.
Yeah. We talk a lot about core strength and breathing and all these things, but I'm sorry, Bob.
I said you have a husband that's your slave and waits and brings you water, tucks you in, and gives you your medicine. And it was scary because I realized that the pandemic seems to, if you're not healthy to begin with, the virus will push you over the limit. And luckily, Carrie was healthy. It started off with 103 fever, which was scary, and then a week of fevers. But at one moment it would be 102, and an hour later it would be 98.3. It was that. But luckily now it's been about 4 days that she has been pretty much over the symptoms, and just keep her isolated and just we're knock on wood.
And you've been healthy, which is wonderful. And
it's very, very strange that we were with each other constantly. We were in Key West with friends election week because I didn't want to be in Fort Myers where people vote for Trump. And so I wanted to be in Key West where I would be surrounded by artistic liberals, and friends that we were there may have passed it on to Carrie.
Well,
but we're through.
Who knows? Every day we're finding out more.
Who knows? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Getting back to the theater, yes, we have had a very blessed life. We had pretty much 30 years of continuous weekly employment, running first the Pirate Playhouse on Sanibel, the first equity theater in Southwest Florida in our area, and then for 20 years creating Florida Rep and running that. So even though it's been a struggle, some of the story over the last couple of years, last year we decided to start a theater. Carrie wrote a 501c3, never having done that before. Usually a lawyer will do that. And we got our tax exempt. Because we've been in the community a long time, we raised over $350,000. We spent about $100,000 in construction. We're at a place called the Shell Factory, which is an iconic roadside attraction, but they had a sort of an events room that they weren't really using very much, and they gave us. So we gutted that room and created an elegant lobby with white chandeliers and playbills from 1929 on the walls, and it's really terrific. And then we put another $100,000 into a lighting system, and then we put another $100,000 into buying risers and portable theater chairs. So we have everything. We had a rough start. We were supposed to open December 2nd last year, and the day we were to open, the fire marshal came in, shuts us down because of a faulty alarm system, which we had nothing to do with. So that night, Arthur D'Alessio was the choreographer. We took the show and we did it under a tent the very night that he canceled us. And we performed. It wasn't the same. And sometimes we'd be performing in torrential rain, holding the wind back from the sides of the tent. It took us 9 weeks to get past this fire marshal. We did a production of The Dining Room as our follow-up show. And by the time we were in the last week of The Dining Room, we got in the theater. I love a flexible black box. I like a space that can transform to the play. So for the theater to serve the play, as opposed to trying to fit the play into the theater. And so we did have a rough start, but then we did Laughter on the 23rd Floor, which a show very well. And that was the first show in the space. And then Carrie was in it. We were in, we had a production of Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which I think was one of the finest things I ever directed. It was a cast of 11. And the unique thing is we had a 16-year-old boy play 15-year-old Christopher Boone. And usually you get like a 28-year-old grad student that's skinny and looks young, and he plays it. Well, this is a kid that was in a production of To Kill a Mockingbird I directed when he was 13 or 14. And he's just a tremendous talent. And we put up this beautiful, beautiful production. Ray Recht, who's designed 6 Broadway shows, designed the set. And we had it, we were going to open on March 16th. And that's when the pandemic just sort of closed everything. We did one performance for about 25 people, lost about $70,000 because that's how much. I mean, unfortunately, about theater, you have to spend all this money before day one.
Sure.
And we closed down. And then the short story now is that we had this theater all ready to go, and I thought, let's do something in it. So we have now turned the theater into a nightclub. And last night we did our 4th week of performances. We opened about 6 weeks ago with a great New York City comedian, R.C. Smith, brought in 2 other comedians. We turned the 200-seat theater into like a 50-seat nightclub. It sort of will remind you of Don't Tell Mama, but like an elegant, like a New York City nightclub. I know we've both done a lot.
Well, we don't have them right now. So I mean, the fact that Fort Myers does, you've got certainly one up on New York City right now. So
yeah, and we're very sensitive. We take people's temperatures at the door. Everyone. We insist that people wear masks until they sit down. All the seating, groups of seating, is 6 feet or more from each other. So there's spacing, and you know what? Let's face it. In the theater, a lot of our audiences are old, and in the theater, a lot of our audiences are exceptionally smart. I always say they're the best looking and most intelligent audiences. And quite honestly, I would say, 90% of our audiences are reluctant to come out now. So it's been rough to get an audience, but the people that are willing to come out are having a great time. So we started off with a comedian, 3 comedians. Then 2 weeks later, we brought in a great jazz trio, a guy named Danny Sinoff, totally remind you of Harry Connick Jr. or Michael Feinstein. Great bassist, great drummer. And we bought a piano for Danny, because I feel jazz really needs an acoustical instrument. Then 2 weeks later, we brought in a guy from New York, Randy Nugent, who does a one-man Pete Seeger show, which was just phenomenal. Much more of a play in that he's impersonating Pete Seeger at a mythical 1982 concert for the people of Cuba, but he sings all of Pete Seeger's great hits. And then we had a week off, and then last night we had, again, another New York comedian, Carmen Cirasillo, and he just knocked it out of the park. Now, to be truthful, we are just barely making enough money on each of these weeks to pay the artists and nothing for the theater or ourselves. But I look at it as, one, we are giving these artists that really need money, $500 a night, whatever. We're giving them money to put in their pocket. For people that want entertainment, we're giving them all 4 things we presented were super high quality. And we're going to survive by donations. Like the opening weekend, we bought a piano we couldn't afford, and an audience member heard it, came up to Carrie at the end of the show and said, I'm going to pay for that piano, and wrote a check for many thousands of dollars a few days later. The second weekend, an usher made a $5,000 donation to support us. The Pete Seeger show, which actually lost money for us in spite of its brilliance. But, someone bought a nameplate for a seat for $500 in memory of his wife, and that enabled us to break even. So we're going to just, and we may, I hope not, David, but we may be in this nightclub mode for till the fall of 21.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, I mean, I think that your middle name should be Job, because I feel like but what I see is resilience always. Last year when I was doing a play down in on the other coast in Wilton Manors that I had some success in, and you wanted to. The two of you wanted to come over and see it. We never played to an empty seat, and we arranged for you to guys to have seats, and a hurricane was about to happen. And I said, Bob, don't come. You could be. Don't drive across the state. You're going to be in the middle of a hurricane. And what you said, I'm not afraid of a hurricane. So this is the man. We should all know that, and you've had many hurricanes. It's not just been COVID and a new theater this year. I want you to share a little bit about the amazing journey you had to recovery from another illness that was unforeseen, and you came out the other end. And look at you. I mean, I know you've shared this in the press, so.
Well, there's a little start-off story. Carrie and I founded Florida Rep, which became the largest arts organization in Lee County, a $5 million organization with 55 employees, 9 Wall Street Journal reviews, which he very kindly called Florida Rep one of the nation's top repertory companies when we ran it. And as I've always joked, even I don't believe that. And in January, I was experiencing personality issues, and I won't go into all the details, but the theater we founded let me go, or actually they didn't let me go. They wanted me to sign a reinstatement contract, and I refused to because they wanted me to do alcohol and drug counseling, which I did not have a problem. Long story short, about 4 months after my firing, I got, or my refusing to sign this reinstatement contract, I was in Denver with Carrie on August 18th. And well, on August 14th, I left a restaurant that we were in with nieces and nephews, and I blacked out. And they couldn't, a half hour after I left the table, they went out, they couldn't find me. They find me about a mile away. I'm at this point with a police officer. I was dirty. I had not had my glasses. They were broken. And I have no memory of any of this. And they took me to the hospital. I get an MRI, and they find an orange-sized brain tumor, literally 6 centimeters. And I, blessed, we were next to one of the finest brain tumor hospitals in the world, UC Health. And Carrie did a great job. We have a friend that's a brain surgeon in Sanibel, and he helped guide us through what she needed to know. And I had a 6.5-hour brain surgery to remove this huge orange-sized tumor. And well, first of all, I had the kind of brain tumor you want to have. If you can sign up for a brain tumor, I suggest you sign up for a meningioma, because meningiomas are self-contained. So this maybe was growing for 40 years. It starts as a pea, then becomes a golf ball, then becomes a lemon. But this was gigantic. But when I woke up, I was like completely back to who I was. See, the theater thought I had a drinking problem because the brain tumor, something that large, affected my balance. So as an actor, if you're going to play drunk, play like you're trying to balancing books on your head. Like that. So, and I was depressed because of what I went through earlier in the year at the theater. And for the first time in my life was taking some antidepressants. So the balance issues we thought was me getting used to those antidepressants. And a brain tumor that large is pressing against my frontal lobe. And your frontal lobe governs your ability to be empathetic, which is a really horrible thing for someone to lose who has 55 employees. Who is a director. But regardless, the blessing is I woke up out of the hospital. Both children, one flew in from California, one flew in from Florida. My children were surrounded me. My sister was in town, lived there, my mother, and I immediately had my balance back. I immediately I'd like to say, had my empathy back. And so I feel sort of blessed. And that was the journey. And then after that, we spent a year looking for a new space for a theater.
Well, I remember you telling me, at that point in your life, you said, we could retire, we could open up a B&B. But then we looked at our lives and said, no, we're theater people, and that's what we want to do. And it was so heartening. I want you to know, I think you do know this, that there were actors and artists that have worked with you over the years that were all pulling for you at that time. I know it was so difficult, first of all, with the leaving of this beloved theater that you founded, the two of you, and then dealing with this health issue. When you talk about this story, what is so remarkable is that you're both always look at the glass half full, never half empty. And the fact that you say, it was the best kind of brain tumor to have, and I just happened to be next to this hospital, that's your resilience. And that's why we all want to work with you. And I was so happy to hear you were starting a new theater. We had plans afoot. You called me with a wonderful idea that I'm still hoping we can make happen sometime in the future. I asked you to share that because you were so frank about it, and it was such an inspirational journey and a happy ending to go along with. And
I'm glad you mentioned, David, your concern, because that's something that while Robert was sick, he wasn't conscious of the outpouring of concern from everybody. Starting from the point of when he was terminated at the theater, there were just so many artists that responded and kept our, faith of what we were doing was the right thing, that we were doing the right thing. It wasn't as though we had made a mistake. It was unbeknownst to us was this disease, this tumor. And I think also Robert wasn't recognizing some of he was not just a balance issue. And I was looking at my future with a man who, at that point, I wasn't sure if it was MS or Alzheimer's. It was far worse than what he indicates. And yet I was only given the information that this could be the cause of depression. So, we were working everything out for the means of making his life more to adapt to the what we were now encountering, which could be permanent. And so when the doctor gave us the diagnosis of a brain tumor, I was relieved. It was like such not knowing what was to follow. I had no idea what the dangers are involved in resecting this from his brain, but just the knowledge that this was something caused by something other than a permanent, something that would be permanent. And then what followed was this incredible, not just from artists, but the community. We could not have received more, support saying, like, it's not over. You've tackled it. Now let's go forward. So, like, you're right. I think he's very resilient, but we also had the support from this community, and and we had, oh God, our family, the kids, our son.
You have two beautiful children, and your daughter has just gotten engaged, I saw.
Yes, but both had these great ideas for us to surface again, and it was so wonderful. Like, our son, he's an entrepreneur, and he said, "Look, I've been to a house in California for a dinner, and I think it would be great if you guys did that." And when you mentioned earlier, our house is a house of entertainment. It is just, and it's not so much how much fun you said as far as the looks of and the appearance. It's the people that come to the house. So we started our own little venture, and we called it Act 3 Productions. But we started doing salon dinners, and it was incredible, where we were inviting people that would have an evening of conversation and being together. We transformed our house into a restaurant. It had 6 dining room tables inside, and then we had entertainers that would come for the salon dinners.
And we would serve a 4-course dinner with wine pairing. So we had 4 wine glasses. So open up, and there would be maybe the first course would be shrimp and caviar and champagne, and then the next course would be white wine and a crab cake over arugula salad. Then the next course would be beef tenderloin with hollandaise or béarnaise sauce and a great red wine. And then so I made my own limoncello. We have a fruit tree. We have a lot of fruit trees at our house, but we had abundant lemons. And I made homemade limoncello with 151 proof grain alcohol that, like, it would take a month or 2. And Carrie, we have 300-year-old mango trees that are 50 feet high, and Carrie made mango sorbet
and our son would fly in and be the sous chef. He would do a lot of the fancy meals, because that's another one of his gifts, is he's a chef. And our daughter, who had all of her friends help serve. So it was like so elegant. And of course, what Robert just described didn't really make us very much money.
I can't imagine, but
raise funds.
Yeah.
Like, we had, it was $100 for the dinner, and these people became our donors. So not only were we making a little money, but we were having donors, and I would tell them about the shows we were going to do. And at the time, you and I were planning on doing 2 by 2. So I'm singing "The God I Know Him." I'm singing songs from the show, explaining how much fun this show is. And I still love that hook, which was Martin Charnin's idea of to have each of Noah's sons, one to have a African-American wife and one to have an Asian wife, because I think that's brilliant. Because, if they're all white, where did the other people come from?
Well, I have to tell you about that show too. First of all, I should tell our audience that what we're talking about is that out of the blue, before you began Player Circle, you called me one day and said, "I want you to do 2 by 2. And I was so thrilled, and it seemed like it was so far ahead, but it was also giving me it was a period where I wasn't working, and it gave me something to look forward to a new beginning, so to speak. We always feel like when there's so much work ahead of you, it's going to stay that way, and then we always have periods that there's not too much going on. So it was something to look forward to, and I was so excited we were going to do it, and we'll find some way to do it. But I don't know if I told you that years before this, when I was probably in my 20s, there was a little theater doing 2 by 2, and Martin Charnin was going to direct it. And I don't even know how I got there, because I was much too young to play the part. But I had a wonderful audition, and he loved me, and he wanted me to do this. And the woman that was reading opposite me was African American. And then there was another couple who he eventually went with, who were older and who were more age appropriate for the parts. And he said, quite honestly, that which I loved. He said, "Do we go with the younger people who have a unique and special take on this, or do we go with the older couple?" And he said, "You'll get to do it someday." And so I thought that this was going to be the time. And actually, his daughter, who is on Facebook, I was following a thread, and I said, I may be doing that show yesterday. She was delighted to know that somebody was doing it. So we have to keep that dream alive somehow. And I have to say, we followed your journey during all of this. I did not know about these wonderful evenings at your house. I would have signed up immediately as either a guest or a performer. I mean, my gosh.
6 months of it.
Oh,
it was a lot of work.
I'll bet. But it was all part of what always strikes me about you two is that you see the larger picture. This was something that you enjoyed. It was going to raise money for the new thing. There was a goal in mind, but the process was also enjoyable, not only for you, and it was bringing in a little income and doing something that you love to entertain. Either Bob, every time we went over to your house, even if it was an impromptu drink after the theater, there was wonderful food in your house. So it's a very welcoming space, and so was working with you when we did our show at Orlando Shakes. You have a tradition. You on opening night, you read a certain passage that we all think of and look forward to, and no matter how many times you do it, you get emotionally involved. I say, now there is a man who is a man of the theater, and I'm remembering that very fondly. I went back to Orlando Shakes to do it again a few years after, and you weren't involved. I think you were too busy doing something else.
I was off for the job, and then I think Suzanne directed it.
Yes. But Duke LaFoon and I were back, and I don't want to say anything about the new cast, or because we had a lovely time that time. But the first time was the best. That was our Duke and I bonded with that experience. And
what a tremendous. I love Duke, and you guys were like brothers from another mother. You guys,
isn't that funny? How we didn't know each other before. We were ships that passed in the night, and during that experience, you brought us together, and we, when we worked together again, it was just like no time had passed. So
I think young actors should know, because your first question was, how did we meet? And this is all clear. You probably auditioned for me, but then you auditioned for me when I was in New York directing for Orlando Shakespeare. But sometimes, an actor will audition for a director and they can't cast them right then, but they remember them. And then the road happens again. Duke was the same. The first time I offered Duke something, he turned it down, but then we worked at Orlando Shakespeare, and again, relationships. And I want to get back to surviving all of this, the brain tumor, or losing Florida rep, or the fire marshal, or COVID coming in. I think we both have a sense of gratitude. There's so much to be grateful for. And there was a lot of stuff in the last 2.5 years for us. But, I've had friends that have children that have died. Our children are healthy and alive. I look around this house and I see this painting that someone gave me, or I see this shirt that I bought and I still love, or I see this piece of fruit on a tree. There's so much to be grateful for. I mean, I'm most grateful for Carrie, but I'm grateful for And you know, I mean, we're alive. And also, I didn't know, you probably knew, but I really wasn't fully aware of that theaters shut down for several years during Shakespeare's time. You know, because of
I did not know that either. Yeah.
Black Plague, and he wrote King Lear, and three of his greatest plays were written while he was in exile. And this is where, you know, look, if Romeo and Juliet, you know, Mercutio says, a pox on both your houses, a pox, a plague on both your houses. But Shakespeare went through this. Then in 1918, of course, I think 1918 to 1920, for 2 years, Broadway was closed down because of the Spanish flu. So, you know, listen, you know, we're going to get through it. You know, will we be through it by the spring, by the fall? Do we have to wait to 2022? We don't know, but we're going to get through it.
I also
absolutely.
It has been very difficult to feel productive or useful, or when we've all kind of gone through this idea that not having live theater, not being in the room with others, is not the same. It's a different experience. And we've seen a lot of how theaters have pivoted to survive and work it out. But it's still, you know, your heart feels so, it just makes you feel like defeated. And yet when I get the stories from last night of what went on, and to know that, as Robert had mentioned, how grateful we are to so many things, but it's the very small, minute things that we don't recognize as being wonderful. And there have been volunteers who've worked with us at the theater, or, you know, just one or two people, and you know that they've been affected. And it's been at a tremendous sacrifice for us to have to do the work that we're doing right now. There's no, you know, paying anyone other than the artists at this point, but we do know that this is making a difference. It's at least keeping, you know, the seed alive so that it can then flourish later in the future.
That's right. That's right. And as I've been saying to many of our guests, first of all, this venue, this Beyond the Green Room show, came about because of the pandemic. It was something to be creative and to keep artists in touch. I often tell the story that how one day when I had my 4 friends with me, I got so excited and so used to being in touch again that I ran out of the apartment without a mask on. I had to run back upstairs because I had forgotten for a moment that we were living our lives behind a mask right now. And so I get so many comments from our guests saying, you know, I know this is for the audience, but this is for us too. And I was dared by Tony to do something like this, and he finally said, you know, it's now or never. Let's do it now when we need it. And it's been great for me. I've experienced so many things during this pandemic. Making friends with dealing with online auditions and sending tapes, both as a director and an actor, and something I was very afraid of before, because this is the way the technology is moving in the future. So we've had baptism by fire to have to do this kind of thing. And I think we're going to appreciate really being in the same room without having to use this technology in a way we took for granted before. I just did a virtual production of the Lorraine Hansberry play Les Blancs through Theatre Emery. And we rehearsed entirely online. And they did a capture for a week, and then it streamed for a week. Now, this is something I never imagined I would be part of. And we learned a lot. We saw what we can do and what we can't do in this venue. But it pointed to the resilience of theater people and saying we must go ahead and do this. I had a long line of work lined up. It was one of those very rich periods ahead, and they all in the middle of March fell like a house of cards. And I had just finished a production of The Sunshine Boys, which I'm sure you know.
pictures of that. Yeah, look great.
You know, and there's the character that I was playing, one of the peccadillos, is that he spits in the face of the other one. And as soon as the show was over, everybody was saying, you know, you have to wear a mask. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did we do? Those people in the audience 40 feet away from me were getting spittle from my over-the-top spitting. But we survived that, and here we are. And I really do think we're going to be heading for a period where we get back to basics in what makes live theater special. Maybe the shows we see on Broadway won't have as many special effects and huge budgets, but we'll appreciate being in the room where it happens, to quote Hamilton.
Yeah, I agree with you, David. It's going to be a golden era.
Yeah. It's going to take a while because, you know, and I think Broadway is going to be the last to come back. But maybe that's a great thing for all the little theaters, the regional theaters, even the off-Broadway theaters here in New York. We all want to work, but we want to work safely. And it won't be as long as perhaps now we thought. That we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I want to show a little, I never got the chance to share the stage with Carrie, but I saw you in so many shows over a short period of time there, and obviously your talent as an actor, but also your warmth and your charisma always shines through. And these roles that you played were so very different. I have a couple of short clips of things that I would love to just you know, throw out there. We're getting towards our intermission time, but I want to show at least one of them before we go on. This one is the one that I didn't see that must have been a remarkable showcase for you. It was a one-woman show about Irma Bombeck.
Oh.
So let's look at that clip, and it's from Florida Rep's production of now I can't think of the name of the play. Yeah, because it was a book. I remember my mother reading it when I was a kid, and you made a one-woman show of it. So here's a little clip of you as Irma Bombeck.
God bless television. You put your kids in front of it, and it's like hypnotizing chickens. If your mother should ask, do you want a piece of advice? It's a mere formality. It doesn't matter if you say yes or no. You're going to get it. Travel! When you look like your passport photo, it's time to go home. The only thing I had ever hoped for was that we would hate the same people together and deteriorate at the same pace. You can quit painting houses in the summer, and I'll be at Miss Ed 3 times a week. Such a beautiful sound. If life's a bowl of cherries, what was I doing in the pits?
Oh,
Just a little soup song, and of course directed by Michael Murata. That's another example of Bob, you being so the sense of continuity you have with all of your friends and colleagues that you have a rapport with, and that was one of the things that was so lovely, to come back and see the same actors showing a different side of themselves. And I know we lost 2 members of our cast of The Seafarer in just these last couple of years, and that does bring back. It reminds us how fleeting it all is, and but I was very proud of that production. I was very happy when you called me and asked me to do that show. I think I said, move the table. I want to do a cartwheel. So that was it. It was a lovely surprise, and the fact that you do not pigeonhole people into you know, only doing musicals or only being an actor or a choreographer, and so it's a beautiful thing. We don't get that in New York very often. We get typed. So we have to go to the regions. We have to go somewhere other than New York to get those opportunities. And Carrie, I think that season, I saw you in The Unexpected Guest, which you also directed, Bob, and also one of my favorites was The Cocktail Hour. I thought you were just really in that. Yeah, just love it. And
I had some great role models for that. But my family is such a Gurney family, so it's playing that role was my grandmother.
Well, it was lovely, and you did a lot of Gurney there at Florida Rep, and you're probably destined to do more at Players Circle once you get out of the nightclub mode.
It's just temporary, the nightclub mode.
Yeah.
Can't wait to do theater again, and big fan of Pete Gurney's. I had the pleasure of knowing him and meeting him many times, but he's a great writer, and that's right. I think half of this is getting back to Robert Edmund Jones. Part of our joy in going to the theater is our knowledge that we are in the presence of artists. But we forget that we're in the presence of artists if the play is performed well, because if it's performed well, it's the contagious excitement of watching a miracle. And I think when my audiences get to see someone acting in an Irish drama and then doing a musical and then doing, something, a screwball comedy, you really get to appreciate artists even more as audiences when you see their scope of work. Let's talk about our dear friend Graham Smith, who just passed away, and how brilliant he was as the blind brother in Seafarer. But then, I had him do Murder at the Howard Johnsons, this silly farce, and he was absolutely hilarious in it. It's so much fun to see actors do a wide variety of work.
Yeah. No, and you brilliantly showcased that when we were there, and not the least of which was Carrie's work. And someday we'll share a stage. I
hope so. We were so close because I did It's a Wonderful Life, Robert's first time. And had we only known you before, that would have been great fun.
Well, things have a way of happening when they're supposed to happen. I'm very, very fatalistic about that too. And how long have we all been in this business, and we think we hit a period where we don't know what's coming next, but that's when the most wonderful things happen. A new door opens up.
Yes. Frequently, I've been wanting to say the word serendipitous, because I think it has been, or I hate using the word accident, but there are good accidents, and it's, if we ever allow ourselves to get stuck in a groove where we can't fall and, fall into something that's good, as I'm mentioning it as an accident. So it's just, hell, Robert and I were pure accident, our meeting one another. So that was, it was a very unlikely couple for us to be, that we ever got together.
Well, maybe, but I tell you, when you were not around, when we were working together at Orlando Shakes, whenever he was directing too, he would say, "This is like when," and it was always this wonderfully romantic story about his wife. And I finally met you around when we were in performance there, and so. It may seem unlikely, and I say that about Tony and I too, but he's in the other room right now switching the levers so that we all could be here right now. And he threw down the gauntlet and said, "Why don't you do something like this?" And so it's every Sunday now. It's, "Oh, we got to do that. Oh, we got to do that. And it's something to look forward to, and it's a challenge because we have to deal with the scheduling and people all over the country. And actually, I'm leading up to this because we did have a third guest today, Philip Chaffin, who is a wonderful singer and actor. And for those of you out there who don't know, he is the co-founder and producer at PS Classics, which is a record label. I think that if you follow the history of the original cast recording, of which I am an inveterate collector, as you all know, I have everything in my collection. I have to have everything, even if it's the Icelandic language production of Little Shop of Horrors. It's on my shelf in there. Anyway, when the cast albums first came about, Decca and John Capp was involved with this. This is when we had those legendary recordings of Oklahoma and Carousel and Bloomer Girl, and then the golden age of the cast album with Goddard Lieberson at Columbia Records came about. And in the 60s, so many legendary recordings by Columbia and RCA and Capitol. But unfortunately, the big record companies lost interest in cast albums. And it was a shame. But the mantle was taken up by Philip and his partner, Tommy Krasker. And we are indebted to them for so many original cast recordings, studio cast recordings of shows that had been forgotten. And so we are hoping to get Philip on here and talk more about these. But I do want to say that we had a song queued up for our little intermission here that I think maybe we can all use to grab a little refreshment or a bathroom break. But he did an album not long ago called Will He Like Me, in which he took many incredible story songs from Broadway musicals and outlined the story of a gay man. And so he turned a lot of these on their ear, gender reversed, and it is quite a remarkable album. And one of the songs on the album is a song that was cut from Ballroom, a show that I love very much on Broadway. And this song was originally in the TV version with Maureen Stapleton, but for some reason they felt it didn't belong in the stage version. But Philip resurrected it and put it on this album, and it's a remarkable song. And we will listen to Philip Chaffin singing this song while we all take a little bathroom break and intermission, and I'll be back with Bob and Carrie, and we're going to talk about even more wonderful things coming up in the future.
Yeah.
Who gave you permission? Who said you could go? You know, if you asked me, I would have said no. You always said we'd grow old together. You promised that's the way it would be. You never said that one would go first. How could you do this to me? Who is there to cook for? And what's there to clean? And how will I fill up the washing machine? How do you sleep with nobody snoring? waste a tea bag on one cup of tea. One loaf of bread will last me a month. How could you do this to me? Who's going to take out the garbage? Who will correct me when I'm right? Who's going to change the fuse? Find that knot in my back. Who's going to kiss me goodnight? I came down this morning, and what did I do? Went straight to the kitchen, cooked breakfast for two. 28 years, our next anniversary. My brother said that it wouldn't last. 28 years, it's hard to believe. How did the time go so fast? The little adjustments, how strange it'll be. Just getting accustomed to not saying we. So many things that we didn't do yet. We have our tickets for our vacation. March 28th, we leave for Bermuda. Your navy blue suit is still at the cleaners. You always made me go to the dentist, and only you remembered my birthday. Whenever there was trouble, you managed to fix it somehow. And if ever there was a time I needed you, it's now.
A little sad, but you know, it's a remarkable song. I remember seeing that TV movie and Maureen Stapleton, of all people, singing this song while she was cleaning out her husband's suits. He had just passed away, and they took it out of the stage version and then put it back. And Philip put it on the album. I know he teased us a little bit there with the intro that sounded like it was going to be Mr. Snow. But if you get a chance to hear this album, it's a wonderful story album, and a tribute to his inventiveness and his artistry. And we hope we'll get him on the show somehow when his Wi-Fi is fixed in Palm Springs. I was scolded by Tony Javid, our producer, that I did not ask the traditional quiz question before the intermission. So I'm going to ask it now. It's a tough one. And I threw down the gauntlet to you, Bob, and I said, maybe he will, maybe he won't know this one. But we did that wonderful Johnny Mercer review together. And Johnny Mercer wrote a musical that only played in the West End. And he wrote it with Andre Previn. Do you know the name of this musical? You get the private quiz question, because I doubt if any of our listeners will. This was really designed to be a hard one this week. So
yeah, that is a tough one.
Well, I'll give you another hint, which may not help. But one of the stars was, believe it or not, Judi Dench.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I saw a clip of Judi Dench once playing Sally Bowles in Cabaret. And who knew that Judi Dench was, again, as we talked about, a musical theater performer, and then one of the great Shakespearean actresses, and then just a great film actress.
Well, she was in the original Hal Prince production in the West End. She was Sally Bowles. And then years later, she played Desiree Armfeldt at the National Theater. And her rendition of Send in the Clowns is floating out there on the internet and in several different venues if you're curious. And to me, I know this is sacrilege to say that it's second to anyone, but it's second only to Glynis John's version of Send in the Clowns. But the musical I'm referring to also starred John Mills and Marty Webb, who was a big star in the West End, and it was The Good Companions.
Okay.
And it did not run very long, and I think because it opened during a time of recession over there in the West End, nobody thought, oh, it was probably too British to move it to Broadway. But it's a score I love, and it was written with lyrics by Johnny Mercer and a collaboration with Andre Previn, a very unusual collaboration. So
yeah, Mercer, unlike all his all the other great lyricists and songwriters, really, other than Little Abner, really did not have that big Broadway musical hit that the Gershwins and Cole Porter and Rodgers and Hart and all the other great ones, right? I think it was only Little Abner. Oh, right, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Well, that was DePaul, but that was his collaborator on Little Abner, but he was not involved with that. But he was involved with St. Louis Woman, which is a classic score, a wonderful score. Right. We had a lot of those songs in our show. Had Myself a True Love and all those standards. It's another one of those scores where you say, why doesn't the show work? But it come rain or come shine. And he wrote another infamous flop called Saratoga.
Anywhere I Hang My Hat, right?
Yeah, Anywhere I Hang My Hat. Yep. And Saratoga he also wrote, which was unfortunately not a success. It eluded him, but he is one of the great lyricists, no matter what. I think he envied the success that someone like Alan J. Lerner had with book shows that kind of eluded him. But we certainly had a great time doing that. I remember when we were running, you would come and stand in the back sometime just to see the end of the show, and your beaming presence, the proud papa of what you had created, was very reassuring. And
we had such a marvelous cast for that. And, in my background of creating Fascinating Gershwin and creating my Cole Porter, Red, White, and Berlin. I have this idea. I doubt I'll ever do it, but that at some World's Fair, I want them to create an American American Songwriters Pavilion. And we have a musical review saluting George the Gershwins, another one Rodgers and Hart, another one Rodgers and Hammerstein, another one Johnny Mercer, another one Irving Berlin, another one Cole Porter, and we run shows in the American Songwriters Pavilion, because musical theater, like obviously, maybe the French and the Italians do opera better, but musical theater is American. No one does musical theater like we do.
And it's such an amalgam of the arts that were distinctly American, the type of dance that it incorporates, the influence from Yiddish theater and African American music, and it's truly the melting pot of all these art forms, and when it works best, it brings them all together into an integrated story. Sometimes when it doesn't work, it's because the disparate elements are too disparate. So it's also the most collaborative thing in the theater, because you can have a lyricist, a book writer, a composer, a choreographer, and they all must be on the same wavelength in order for it to work. And when it does, it's just magic. And when it doesn't, it's still fascinating. And it's something, you know how I feel about it. This is why I collect all these recordings. I don't know anything about pop music because I spent my entire life collecting musical theater recordings. But and now I've made peace with it. I don't apologize for it, and that's where we are.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same way, David. That I don't like when I was in high school and people listened to the Stones and rock bands. I was like, I always say, like, when I was 18, I had the musical taste of an 80-year-old. I love Rodgers and Hart and Nat King Cole singing a song. I mean, just and obviously to this day, I just love the American Songbook.
So Carrie, have you done any musicals?
I played Ado Annie.
Should I get that picture?
I don't know. I have no idea. But there's so many straight shows that have little ditties in them. So I think I've probably had about a dozen songs that I've had to sing in various places. Again, Gurney always has a song in there. So, it was in Sylvia and in
You'd Be So Nice.
You'd Be So Nice.
Indian Blood.
Indian Blood, yeah. So I've had, and I love to sing, and I do sing on my own.
All right, here's Carrie as Ado Annie.
Oh my goodness.
Very tight.
Of course. Yeah, we got it a little out of frame there, but I saw the pigtails, which you could still do.
I think I'm one of those ancient Indians now, No, it's thank God for the theater. I mean, it keeps us young though, David, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I mean, I look at pictures of things. I mean, you can see behind me all of my Don Quixote collection. Our whole dining room is memorabilia because I played Don Quixote in high school the first time. And then I played it professionally when I was 27. And it started off a whole string of Don Quixotes and directing it and everything. And now that I'm the right age to play Don Quixote and Men of La Mancha, I don't get hired to do it anymore. But I think I've had enough of it. But it's followed me throughout my career, and it was a dream role at 17. And I look in the rearview mirror at all of the great roles that I've played, and I say, well, if I quit now, I'd have something to point to. And I think we all feel that way. But the best thing is that we've still got an awful lot ahead of us. And I think resilience and thankfulness in post-Thanksgiving show has been the theme of today's show. And I'm so happy that you two were a part of it. So going forward, what can we expect in an ideal world if you were to go back to theater at Players Circle? What are your dreams for the next season?
Well, I absolutely love, and we have it on our schedule. We'll probably be postponing it to the fall, but I absolutely love Lifespan of a Fact. I loved it on Broadway with Cherry Jones and Daniel Radcliffe and Bobby Cannavale. It's and I think it's a very, I can't believe more regional theaters didn't have it on their season last year, because I thought, how important is the truth? How important is it to tell the truth? And what I like about the play is it doesn't take sides. It's not, obviously the writer feels that I have a license to play around with the truth while I'm writing this essay, and the fact checker feels no, the truth is important. But when we have a president that was calling the press liars, and the press, I think it's a great story. I think the play is very, very funny, and they did a great job making it funny on Broadway. So I'm really excited about that play. And I think my opinion, if I direct it, and I will, is that a perfect production, if you poll the audience after the show, 100 people would say the writer's right, and 100 people would say the fact checker's right. But to get that argument, that discussion was very, very funny. I look forward to that. I think I look forward to making people laugh and entertaining them.
We have another Buffalonian, is Tom Dudzik. So that's on our boards of
Miracle on South Division Street, which is a show that we helped develop, and it's wonderful. But I think, people are going to want to laugh. It seemed like the staff always liked the cutting edge show we did in the year. And I said to them, there's such a great gift if you can make people laugh or make people escape with musical theater. And I think look at after the pandemic, after the Spanish flu, that led to the 20s and the 30s and the screwball comedy and the golden age of musical theater. I think there's going to be a glorious age of entertainment and creativity, and I look forward to making people laugh. We created a show last year that, unfortunately, even though we spent a tremendous amount of money on the set, we never did it, called Ho Ho Ho, the Christmas Show. And it was really just fun, delightful, musical theater, So I look, I've always liked, as you know, David, you already brought it up, a wide variety. So to do that hot little drama, and then to do that recent show from Broadway, and then revive some play from the 1930s or 40s, and then do something that just is funny, and to explore musical theater, so I look forward to giving people a variety. I am toying around. We'll see how this nightclub thing is, because North Fort Myers, where our theater is, has no art centers whatsoever. So I'm wondering whether I should run a play for a month and then run a week of jazz and a week of comedy. Another thing I'd like, if people are, your friends of yours are out there listening, we are going to be looking for, solo shows like the Pete Seeger Show, and bringing people here, if people have shows that would be appropriate. We don't have a lot of money, but we are paying the artists. Like I said, it looks like January. I think this spring, the likelihood is we have a jazz trio that could do every Thursday night. We have comedians to bring in. But if people have, especially if they're in Florida, but if they have solo shows or small shows, I'd be interested in talking to them about, putting some money in their pocket and bringing entertainment.
Well, as you probably know, this little show, if we don't get all the viewers live, as we're doing right now, they stream in perpetuity on my Facebook page, and you can repost it on the theater's page, and we see that a lot more viewers throughout the week and throughout the month are watching. So if we get some people who are interested, we will certainly get them in touch with you, because we all want to work, we all want to create. We're just seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and saying, okay, we thought it was going to be 4 weeks when in New York when things shut down, and a couple of months ago we thought, well, maybe it's going to be forever. You get to that point, and but now it looks like we're revving up again. And the creativity that we've had by doing platforms like this, and the show that I did with Theater Emory, Tony's Piano Bar Live that broadcasts every Tuesday night on Facebook, has cabaret performers in a virtual setting like this. And so we're moving forward. And I want to show one more short clip, because it was one that I saw Carrie do and Bob directed. It's another little promo from the show, but Becky's new car was one that I thought was just just phenomenal. And it wasn't one that was done anywhere else that I can recall, probably, but you guys were pioneers in doing this play. It was a great showcase for Carrie's work, and so many familiar faces, people I worked with at Florida Rep. So let's just show this short clip and your collaboration on Becky's New Car.
Becky is the name of a dull housewife in a sad movie about a poor family.
Oh, no, I had yelling like.
Oh, jeez. Mom, what are you doing with your life?
Is that what you were thinking and were going to ask me?
Not anymore.
Would you please just let me say this?
Walter, where do you know my son from? Not a word. We don't say anything.
So much fun!
Oh God.
Oh yes, that was a lovely night in the theater, and I was so happy to be part of the family down there when we worked together, and see so many wonderful evenings in which you were performing.
Audience members that I asked on stage to hold up the towels so I could change behind it. And, they were a little bit taken aback having to hold up for that. But no, that was a great experience having, direct contact with the audience. And
Yeah. Well, and it's a tribute to your communication skills and your charisma, because that, as I say, you can be a great actor, but you don't necessarily have those skills in your pocket, and you always do and did. So no, I changing your clothes on stage like that, we have to let our vanity go. I remember the first time I was doing a production of romantic comedy, the Bernard Slade play many years ago, and the hook is that in the first scene, my character is caught nude on stage, thinking that his leading lady is his masseuse, and halfway through the scene, he realizes you're not the masseuse. And where I was doing this show, we had to. It was a squeaky clean play, but of course, this was integral to the plot. So the director did a lot of soul searching and got me some kind of a little slingshot to wear in one scene, and then he said, but you've got to put makeup where you're holding where the straps are and all of that. And finally I said, vanity, just get rid of it. I threw the thing away, and I found out my leading lady had such nearsighted issues that she couldn't see anything. And of course, the laughs all came bigger the further I went out on the stage. And so I don't know what that means, whether I should be flattered or insulted about that, but that's what happened. And we get over those things. Now nobody's asked me to get naked on the stage anymore lately, so I either have to breathe a sigh of relief or be insulted. I don't know. But we're still here, and there'll probably be many more quick changes in our future, God willing. And you certainly have made a lot of quick changes in your life and your careers over the last couple of years. And I thank you so much for being a part of the show today, and that I am a part of your lives and you're a part of mine. Our next week, maybe we'll get Phil Chaffin in here to fill in, but we do have two wonderful men who I have worked with over the years, a wonderful director and a wonderful actor, Stephen Nakami and James Van Truren. I could say that James was my favorite leading man because when I played Alban, one of the many times in La Cage, he was my leading man.
Oh.
So those are the gentlemen we'll see next week, and we're hoping to get Phil back in here very soon. I have one little play off, another moment from our time together doing Johnny Mercer, another promo. So let's enjoy that. And I want to wish you both a happy Christmas and New Year and wonderful year ahead. I'm very grateful you could join us. Be well. I will see you, as I say, on the other side, and we'll look at another minute or so of a montage of Too Marvelous for Words.
Oh.
Hooray for Hollywood! You may be homely in your neighborhood, but if you think that you can be an actor, see Mr. Factor. He made a monkey look good. Within a half an hour, you look like Tyra Moore. Hooray for Hollywood!
I'm a cowboy who never saw a cow.
Never roped a steer, cause I don't know how. I sure ain't fixing to start it now. Yippee-i-yo-ki-yay.